So, I do not know how long this video is going to be, but today what we're doing is talking about some of the earlier Vancouver Canucks news and, let's just say, signing updates that we have been come to receiving the past few hours here. Now, this was from earlier in the day. I apologize, I did have some extra work to do after making today's other videos, but I wanted to set aside some time to talk about defense. Because when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, we had already made a big deal about how we had Mark Friedman stepping into the lineup yesterday, we had the call-up and the subsequent sending down of Matt Irwin, which occurred earlier today. But when it comes to guys that are expiring later this year, we had ourselves two tweets that go out there and pretty much give us the updates we need to know. Starting out with what Rick Dalibor said earlier this morning at 9:47 a.m. This is what JP Barry, the agent for Tyler Myers, goes out there and says. Myers loves playing in Vancouver. The contract that he gets in this upcoming offseason will be different from last time, and we know that. He loves being in Vancouver, though. He is looking forward to the playoffs, and he should be back soon from injury. Now, we did see some extra reports saying that the Tyler Myers injury that he got is not gonna last until the playoffs, so anybody like me, for example, that was going out there and trying to say, oh, the Canucks should try to pull off some salary cap shenanigans, put Myers $6 million until the end of the year onto LTIR, and use that extra space to get somebody else, and then reactivate Myers in the postseason. That's gonna be great, right? Pull off a Nikita Kucherov, Jack Eichel, Mark Stone here in Vancouver, but unfortunately, that does not really look like it's going to be an option because reports are saying that Myers will be back before the playoffs begins, which kind of hurts the Vancouver Canucks in a way because it means that they cannot put the $6 million on the LTIR. Or, I mean, they can, but it's not really like they're going to be able to do anything with that money because once Myers comes back, hey, they're crap out of luck. Either way, though, that $6 million is indeed the current contract he is on right now, and it's very evident that since the day he was signed in Vancouver in 2019, he was not going to go out there and live up to that money. He was in his late 20s up to that point, was a pretty alright point producer for the Winnipeg Jets, admittedly, but who was so slow and bad with decision-making that it was kind of mind-boggling upon his first season in Vancouver why this guy was making the amount of money that he was. Now, to be fair, this season, Tyler Myers is up to 23 points in 62 games played, a pretty good increase over every single other year he has had as a member of the Vancouver Canucks, but Chaos Draft is still Chaos Draft. We know his reputation, we know his faults, we know his strengths. When it comes to Myers and the upcoming offseason, though, I am very interested into seeing where this contract discussion is going to go, because he is 34 years old now. He's definitely not gonna get any better. I mean, we recognize that he's producing more points now, but to be fair, a lot of the Canucks are producing more points, so everybody else getting a bunch of production as a result doesn't really seem like the weirdest thing in the world. But for Tyler Myers, for him to acknowledge that he is not a $6 million player, he knows that his reputation does not really allow him to maybe get that kind of money again. It's good that the agent is at least acknowledging that, but it also interests me how apparently Myers really likes playing here in Vancouver. And because of that, I'm starting to think, okay, would the Canucks even be willing to re-sign Tyler Myers? Let's say they get him to a cap hit of, I don't know, $2.5 million, maybe $3. Do you give that amount of money to Tyler Myers? Honestly, I think about it. If you had to twist my arm, I'd probably say no, but I'd think about it. That's mostly because for Tyler Myers, even though he is this chaos draft, we do recognize that sometimes when he's not in the lineup, there is more of a stability that he provides that is quite evident when he is not there. And it's so strange to say that, considering the faults that Tyler Myers has normally. But it is kind of an interesting note that we do see this decor destabilize itself with the lack of Tyler Myers sometimes when he is out. Now, the other game was fine. Mark Friedman was okay, but then again, they were playing Anaheim, so it's not really like the same caliber of talent is going up against them here. I just found it kind of interesting how if Tyler Myers does get an offer from the Vancouver Canucks, it's very likely that he'll go out there and sign it. All dollar amounts aside, the fact that he likes it here enough to want to stick around, that does intrigue me. Do the Canucks re-sign Tyler Myers for next year? Now, when it comes to right-handed D-men, there is another guy on this team whom we already know the Canucks are probably going to try to re-sign, but at what dollar amount? That's the question here. Take a look at this tweet made by Frank Saravelli from earlier this afternoon. With Elias Pettersson locked up, it appears that Filip Hronek is next up on the Canucks list, as GM Patrick Allvin and Hronek's agent Alan Walsh were spotted meeting during practice today in LA. It's too early to handicap, but seems like today was a check-in on the process. And hey, this is what Patrick Allvin does, man. He's going out there and getting things done. He's getting the check-ins, he's talking about his clients, he's talking about guys that are going to be making money. And realistically, when it comes to Filip Hronek, he's in a really odd spot. Because yes, he's having one of the best Canucks defenseman seasons we've ever seen out of a guy not named Quinn Hughes. 45 points, 63 games played, on pace for 59 in a full 82-game season, and he ended up getting himself one of the top records for the team. Take a look at this on StatCenter Twitter. Fewest games to reach 40 assists in a season from Canucks defensemen in history. 63. Filip Hronek reached the 40 assist mark, which is just behind Quinn Hughes 4 times and Paul Reinhart. So we can acknowledge that Quinn Hughes has been fantastic, but Filip Hronek is right there too, and literally amongst the best of the best in Canucks defenseman history. Which is where you go out there and ask, what exactly is the dollar amount here? We'd been hearing some reports saying, oh, maybe Hronek is asking for $8 million, maybe he's asking for something in that range, but realistically, it's tough to go out there and say to anybody, much less Filip Hronek, hey, we're going to give you $8 million, you're going to be making more money than Quinn Hughes, who is making 7.8, and you'll be making the same amount of money as JT Miller, who's making 8 flat. Elias Pettersson making 11 is okay because he's kind of, in that territory, but Filip Hronek, that's a really interesting one. Now, he is young-ish, 26 years old, just 2 years older than Quinn Hughes, but it is kind of difficult for me to envision his RFA negotiations getting to a point where the Canucks sign off on and say, yeah, here's some money to make more than Quinn Hughes. You're more expensive than him. To me, the Detroit Red Wings' Nick Lidstrom idea is the one that falls into play here. Hey, you're not making more money than our captain Nick Lidstrom. Sorry. No ifs, ands, or buts, you're not doing that. And that negotiation tactic forced a lot of players with the Wings earlier in the day to sign for lesser dollar amounts than you could have debated they were worth, because they didn't want to break that upper limit. Now, with Vancouver, Hughes at 7.8, Miller at 8, and PD at 11, it does kind of set the precedent saying, yeah, if you give Hronek his asking price, 8.1 or whatever, sure, he's a 60-point defenseman who is only 26 years old, playing one of the best offensive seasons he's ever had, but you can't slight your captain like that. You can't say to the media, to everybody that follows this team, yeah, Filip Hronek is a more expensive player than Quinn Hughes. Like, sorry, I don't make the rules here, but just the optics of that looks so weird and inappropriate in a way. So whether or not Filip Hronek does get things done here, we'll see. We had some other kind of comments made by a few other insiders debating whether or not he gets at least $8 million, and even other discussions from Canucks insiders saying, hey, if he's non-budging from that, if he's not willing to take less than 8, less than 7.5, less than 7, then the Canucks may have no choice but to think about trading him, which would be very interesting, but at the same time, a possibility that I don't think we should completely rule out just yet. So if you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Filip Hronek and Tyler Myers, how Myers wants to stay in Vancouver, or at least how he would like to stay in Vancouver, and what do you think is the proper dollar amount that would allow you to feel comfortable with that happening? Secondly, when it comes to Hronek, what is the max dollar amount that you would be willing to give him on a contract extension? Let's say 8 years, just to make it fun. What's the max dollar amount you'd be willing to add on to make this go through? And do you think that's the kind of dollar amount that Filip Hronek himself would accept? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this entire Canucks defenseman conversation. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.